Thanks, Keeley. You're our first guest of this new version of Emergent Conversations. This is Keeley O'Connell. She's one of our educators here in our Sunlight classroom. Keeley, we asked you to be on this episode of the podcast because of your background in marine science, and you recently went on a field trip with our school age group to low tide. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with low tide that day, and then a little bit about your experience with marine science?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got started in my career quite a long time ago. I'd always enjoyed the sciences. I moved out here from the Midwest to get a master's degree in marine sciences from Western, and pursued that for about 17 years. I did a lot of, I was mostly doing salmon habitat restoration work and spent a lot of time out on the shorelines around Puget Sound. But my role really had me interface with the public. So I was doing a lot of work with community members, getting people out into these environments, having people help us restore environments for salmon. And that included working a lot with children and families. And I really did start enjoying working with children quite a bit. After about 17 years of doing that, I noticed my own passions starting to change, and decided to, follow that thread and let that evolve. And that led me into more formally working with children in education settings. I started by volunteering in Head Start classrooms, and decided to become an early childhood educator from that. I was actually introduced to Hilltop back in 2017 by a colleague through Head Start, and actually started taking trainings through the Institute here at Hilltop back in 2017, 2018. And those were still in person. Of course, this was prior to COVID. And just pretty much immediately just really enjoyed the atmosphere of the actual physical atmosphere of Hilltop, of the school, of peeking into the classrooms when I'd be here for the trainings. I started researching more about emergent education and play-based education. And then as we were coming out of COVID, I used that as an opportunity to apply to Hilltop. And I got a position as one of the lead educators in a preschool classroom. So I'm in my third year, and I work with 3- and 4-year-olds in Sunlight Room.
Awesome. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. And I think just for our listeners, so they know, our theme around this podcast is about sharing your passion. And your passion is marine science, or one of your passions is marine science. So I guess my next question is, what made you want to share that particular passion with our school-age children that day at low tide?
So the invitation was extended out to me from the school-age educators. Some of the other educators here know about my passion in marine sciences, my background in marine sciences. As colleagues here, we like to talk about our passions and share with each other what we do. And I think the educators with the school-age program, they knew that it would be really helpful to have someone with some knowledge and experience out on the beach with them that day. And, like a lot of folks, I, of course, love sharing my passion with other people, and love working with children of all ages. And I thought it would be really fun also to get an experience with an older age group. Mm-hmm. It's not, I'm working with the 3- and 4-year-olds every day. So I really looked forward to the opportunity to getting out of my own environment that I'm in every day, and getting outside back into one of my environments that I love so much in the Puget Sound, and being able to share that with the school-age kids.
I think that's really awesome too, and it kind of shows your skill and your talent, and just being able to work with the different age groups, right? Because I think if you have something that you're passionate about, I think it's easy to kind of adopt it for different people who are interested in learning it. So I think that's really awesome. Can you speak a little bit about why you think it's important to share your passion in regards to child development?
Yeah, I mean, I think with all child development, kids from from birth onward, they're looking to their adults to take cues about their environments, to learn information about their environments. In addition to their own methods through sensory seeking, they're looking to adults to help them interpret the experience that they're having. And so even with, the 3 and 4-year-olds or the school age kids, they're looking to us as adults to kind of help reflect back to them what they're experiencing. And I think that sharing our passions as adults plays right into child development, because it encourages them to continue to be curious and encourages them to reach and continue to reach.
Right.
If they know there's someone there keeping them safe, they feel more flexibility to explore, to utilize all of their senses, to really fully go into their own development, because we're there to help them process what they're experiencing and keep them safe and help them along that journey.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's that's the foundation of being able to learn, right? Being able to feel safe. So I think the fact that you're mindful of that, is again a testament of your skill set as a teacher. Can you also share a little bit about how it builds relationships with children, to be able to share something that you're passionate about, something that you love?
Yeah, I think the foundation of any relationship building is building that foundation of trust. And I think one of many ways we do that is can be through sharing our passions. I think it's really impactful for children. Children are going to emulate us. They see what we do, they feel our energy. They're going to copy what we do. I had a parent reflect back to me recently at a conference. They were sharing that their child was at home with a clipboard and a paper and looking very serious and walking around and making marks on the paper. And the parent asked, "What are you doing? Who are you being?" And the child said, "I'm Keeley." And when the parent was telling me this, I was like, oh my gosh, is that how I behave in the classroom? And the parent went on and said, no, wait. They said, I'm Keeley during a fire drill. And I was like, well, okay, that checks out. I am a little more serious during a fire drill. I need to safely get 16 kids out of the building. So it really shows me that, oh yeah, they're really picking up not just on what we're doing, but our being. They're picking up on our energy. So when we think about that in the framework of passion, they're going to pick up on our joy. They're going to pick up on our excitement.
Right.
And this is a reflection. This is a two-way street, a mirror. So in terms of relationship building, they're going to sense when we're excited about something, they're going to get excited with us. And then when we get excited about something with them, that really builds trust. That's giving them those messages. What I care about matters to my adult. What I say matters to my adult. The things I say, the things I care about are important and valid. And that's just so critical for that foundation of trust to build with kids. Whether you're a parent, an educator, whatever role that you have in a child's life, building that foundation of trust and passions, sharing our passions, and that mutual reflect back and forth is one of the pathways to that.
Yeah, it's one of the things I value about Hilltop is that, it's taking the child where they are, but at the same time trusting them that they're capable and understanding that passion. And we're not avoiding the situation or the topic or the question. Instead, we're breaking it down for them to their level in a way that they can understand it. So I agree with you. I think it does build trust, and it kind of works both ways too, right? I think sometimes it's important, we can't always be our best selves, but it is important to try our best, because they can pick up on the negative as well too, right? The anxiety, they pick up on some of that stuff that could be, giving that energy to them. And sometimes if we are, apprehensive or anxious to let them know what's making us anxious, it only makes them more anxious as well, right? Because now they're not aware of what is causing you anxiety, and it can only make them a little bit more anxious of oh no, what is happening? So I tell that to teachers all the time too. It's the way you bring yourself in the classroom. Children totally feel that, and they totally read your energy, and hopefully it's something that you're passionate about to kind of help them and uplift them, as opposed to kind of bringing them down a little bit. So that's great that you do that. Can you talk about what is the importance of helping a child learn to learn, essentially, through your passion? How do you build the foundation of them being able to learn through your passion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it ties in well with the foundation of Hilltop being play-based, being emergent and play-based. We're growing lifelong learners. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's a very important role as an adult to help foster lifelong learning in children, if we're going to be in these roles as parents, as educators. And again, our passions are one way we can do this. So when we bring that excitement and that joy, we can make learning fun. I think every day we can make learning fun. It's a little easier, especially as an adult, if we're doing that through our passion. It might be tough for adults to tap into their play, to remember what it was like to be this young child, where play was the natural undercurrent of our daily lives. We can reclaim some of that as adults through our passions, and that can be like that foundation for helping to foster that lifelong learning with kids. And I think it can be tricky, sometimes kids might get stuck on we've heard of like the kiddo who's just so into dinosaurs, or they only like vehicles, or it's all about princesses. And as adults, I think it's important to take that, whatever they are passionate about, and still hold that as a very important, precious thing, and remind them that, that's valid, that's valuable. And even if for us it feels a little stagnant, we can bring the creativity as adults to help scaffold that very one focused, narrow passion of theirs into a broader realm, and help them build that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think one, as an adult, it helps you kind of tackle every topic, right? It doesn't make you shy away, because you can always find something to branch off of based on a child's interest. What made you kind of want to share your passion? Like, what inspired? Do you have a moment or something that you want to share about a time in your life where you felt like, oh yeah, this is worth it to share a passion because of the profound maybe effects it had?
So I used to have a stepson. This was many years ago. And when his parent and I split up, his other parent really wanted to foster that connection that he and I had formed, and continued to find ways to keep me engaged in their child's life. When my stepson was 6-7 years old, I used to take him to work with me when I could. I was still working in the environmental sciences field at the time, in marine environment. And so I would take him out into the field with me. We'd go out to these beaches and we would do these surveys, and I'd set him up with his own clipboard, his own survey sheet. He would take notes. He loved math. So one of his passions was math. And this was an experience I could help foster in him, where this is real life math. We're taking these surveys, we're collecting data, and be able to explain to him data collection and why this is important. And then through the connection that his parent was able to foster with me to stay involved in his life, a few years later, they started volunteering in a program I was running, where we then later went back to some of these same beaches that he had been with me when he was 6 or 7, and now he's 8, 9, 10. A few years later, and he and his family are joining me to help replant the beaches with native plants based on that data he helped me collect. And I feel like it was a real solid real life experience for him. And I like to think it stuck with him, because he's 25 now, and he's working in the field of water resources. So he's still using his passion for math. Yeah. He became very interested in sciences. He's doing his own data collection now. Yeah. And it's hard to know if that was my influence or many influences, but it's fun to see that thread continue through a person's life from childhood.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I'm sure that's one of the reasons why they got into that field. I think, as a teacher of young children, I think it's so special to be able to see something that you give a child kind of become a part of their identity, or of who they are. I think it shows one of the importance of this field, that sometimes, as you know, early learning is kind of an afterthought when it comes to education. So I think, it shows how, again, profound it could be to just be that inspiration for a child that can then snowball into, a career that is one, positive for the world and the environment, all things considered. So I think it's kind of this holistic approach to learning, and this kind of this collaborative effort to kind of make everything a better place, right? So I think that's pretty special and that's pretty awesome. Is there a moment from your time at the Low Tide with our school age group that you remember, or something that you want to share?
Yeah, it's such a great space working with the school age group. I think as kids do get a little older, when children are younger, we're trying to help them learn that reciprocity. The back and forth, I share with you, you share with me. Mm-hmm. Understandably, very young children, they love to talk, they love to share, they love to see their adults getting excited for them. And then as the children get a little older, say the kids in our school age program, they've had more experience with that, and they're more into the back and forth and the reciprocity. They've learned that. Their adults in their life have scaffolded that. So I really got to have that experience out on the beach with the school agers. And like some of the things I saw, I feel like I saw kids taking risks they maybe wouldn't have taken if they hadn't been there with someone who was able to talk about being on the beach, being safe on the beach. I let them know there's really nothing out here that could hurt you. Barnacles could scratch you. Here are the things that you want to watch out for. But I really saw kids being adventurous and really doing things they maybe wouldn't have done if they hadn't felt like someone prepped me for being in this space. Someone prepped me for what kind of animals I'm going to find. We were able, just to have a child pick up a crab, and then I'm able to identify the crab for them so they know exactly what they're holding and they can make that connection. Or I taught 2 children how to pull the eelgrass back really slowly in a tide pool so they could find these quite small green shrimp that live out here in Puget Sound in the tide pools. And most people overlook those because they blend in, they're very hard to find. And then they taught other kids how to do it. So here, feeling that, it's getting passed along. Behind me, at one point, I heard one child tell another child, "Hey, don't forget to turn the rock back over so the hermit crabs don't dry out." They remembered that from, when I was sharing with them, like some beach etiquette that we always start with, how to be safe on the beach.
That's awesome. It builds their confidence, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it helps them be leaders, and I think it definitely had an effect on them. I heard from parents from that day of how much their child shared, how much fun they had, and how much knowledge they learned from you that day. I saw the picture of a child holding that shrimp, and I shared with you earlier, that child isn't necessarily somebody who's very gentle often. He's they're wonderful, and they're just maybe not so mindful of their body sometimes, but to see them with this picture of them being so gentle with this shrimp, it showed me of as long as you give them, again, that trust and that knowledge, how mindful they can be of their body, or ways that potentially they can hurt a smaller creature than them. So I thought it was so great to see them be this way that I don't usually see them. And then similarly, I think I know it's definitely had an impact on them because, as you know, our school age classroom was originally called Ocean, and it was just one classroom, and they've since branched off into Orca classroom and Seahorse classroom, and I forget the other classrooms they have, but they're all marine-based classrooms. So I think it's great that they all have this love for nature, and in particular marine life, and especially here in the Pacific Northwest, I think there's so much to explore. So to be able to use nature, which is one of our values, right? How do we live in reciprocity with nature, and how do we make sure that our relationship is kind of symbiotic in that way, to kind of learn from, but also take care. I think that's great and profound. Do you think that children, or better question, how would you inspire other adults to share their passions with children, so that they can continue to kind of learn and teach them as well?
Yeah, one of the whether you're an educator, a parent, or both, I think finding ways to also, to not only show your children you value their passions, but to also share your passions with them. Share what adult excitement looks like and adult joy, and keep those types of energies very present in your child's life, so that they're getting that positive reflection and feedback, not just of themselves, but of ourselves. And one way to do that is through sharing our passions. one thing I love, like, so as educators, collaborating with your co-educator and your teacher, if you and a co-educator work together, sharing your passions, talking about the similarities and differences, but doing that openly with the kids, like inviting the kids, your children in your room, into your conversations between you as adults. And this can happen in, your small group activities, large group activities. It's going to show up in the way that you present documentation, the way you decorate your room. All of this can come from this place of your passions as an adult. And then I love inviting our families into our classroom. Last year we had a parent come in and share their passion along with some instrumentation and materials to explore sound waves. And this was really cool. Because in addition, not only was the parent sharing one of their passions, kids love having their parents come into the classroom.
Yeah.
But in this particular situation, the parent's child, you could tell they knew how to use these materials. They had explored these materials at home, and they felt very, very secure and very empowered to be able to lead their peers. And this was a child he's kind of a younger child in the classroom, wasn't a leader in a lot of ways in their classroom, and then give him materials he knows how to use, that he's familiar with and comfortable with, and he became a leader. He was teaching his peers how to use these materials, and you could just see the pride and the joy in him. And this was a passion that came from his parent that he was then able to, with his parents' support, bring to his peers and step into a role of leadership, which wasn't something he often did in the classroom. And so I think it was a profound experience for this child.
Yeah, that's awesome, right? To see them build confidence with something that they are, knowledgeable in. I think, again, it goes to show them that I'm capable in so many different ways that maybe others aren't, and it gives them hopefully that confidence to propel them into other things and show them that they're, just as capable in other things. So I think that's great. Any last thoughts you want to share with us before we sign off?
I would just say I think it's so important to share our passions with the young children in our lives. Our passions are so rooted in joy for us, and the more joy we can not only experience but express as adults, I think it helps children stay in those joy spaces for longer, and help balance out some of the more challenging things that we deal with in our lives. I think for adults, passions are an important outlet for joy when there is a lot of struggle and a lot of suffering that we know is in the world and that impacts our own personal lives very deeply. Finding those places of joy and those reposits of joy are so important. And it is one of our jobs to offer that as a gift to children, offer our joy as a gift back to children in our lives, reflect their joy back to them, and just stew in that together, celebrate that together. I think that's the kind of stuff that can transform lives.
I think it's, I think about our motto of, building on the wonders of childhood. It's that, right? It's hopefully that passion was something that, was wondered as a child, and, it built into this passion that you can then take to others to do the same. Well, thank you, Keeley, for joining us today. And thank you to our listeners for watching us. Until next time, this has been Emergent Conversations. Goodbye.